I have watched CEO after CEO after CEO fold like a cheap table. Because what can they do? At that point, it's too freaking late. So the most important idea, before we get into the what of what to do, the most important idea in the book is that it's always too early until it's too late. If you want to do this, do it while you actually still can. The mess that we're in goes into the heading of shareholder primacy. You suckers, you thought you were building a vital, beautiful, living superorganism. Joke's on you. Actually, no, you just created a financial instrument for the enrichment of shareholders. Didn't you know? For the vast majority of the hundreds of years there have been joint stock corporations wandering this earth, if you forcibly took over a company and you're just like, I want to change what they do to make it whatever I want, that would have been considered a crime.
Now we have a new thing stirring the pot.
Yeah.
Okay. And we have these incredibly fast-growing AI labs who have alternative governance.
They do. I tell the story in the book about Anthropic, and they have the two-tier, two-entity structure where the company is governed by a long-term benefit trust. When we were talking to investors about it, they'd be like, well, this sounds like some newfangled thing. And we're like, well, actually, sir, did you know that the German optics company Zeiss, who makes the lenses in your glasses, had this structure in 1887? There's so many of these companies that we interact with every day. But we don't really realize that if you take that set of companies as a class, they have something like 5 times the longevity on average compared to conventional companies. The other thing that's really interesting about them is that as a class, they completely defy our modern ideas about what are the best practices, about how companies are supposed to be built, operated, and governed.
Welcome to Deep Tech Live by SOSV, the podcast where we explore the frontiers of deep tech and its impact on our world, with the help of top technologists, researchers, and pioneering founders shaping tomorrow. SOSV Deep Tech Live.
I'm 𝗏𝗄. I'm managing director of the San Francisco division of the global firm SOSV, and I have with me the incomparable, incorruptible Eric Ries. As all of you, every single one of you knows, Lean Startup. 15 years ago, you came out and said, you're all doing startups wrong. And you were right. And everybody here who's an investor, everybody who's a founder, their DNA is built into them, and thanks you for you. And now you're back with a new book saying something also, you're doing things wrong. But this thing that you're doing wrong is a little more complicated. It's capitalism as itself. And you're going after a system. And it's very different because in Lean Startup, you gave every founder this agency, these tools, these plans for how to do this. And they could navigate the world and they could run into difficulty, all sorts of stuff, but they were empowered. Mm-hmm. And here you're attacking an interdependent system, right? And you've been doing this from the long-term stock exchange, and now you got a book around it.
Yeah.
Let's just warm up the audience. Just do a little crowd work. Say hi to everyone.
Hi everybody.
Hi everyone. Say hi to Eric. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. Let's just test this question. Okay. All right. So if you're kind of like a no, I want you to like raise your hand and you'll go like that towards the north side. And if you're like a maybe, and if you're like a yes, you'll kind of point south towards Silicon Valley, right? Okay. Now, you're an investor and you hear that a startup wants to be a public benefit corporation. In Delaware law, public benefit corporation. How do you react to that? How do you think about that? I'm a little like, but okay. Yeah. Now, just to be clear, at SOSV, we are a giant firm where we have an enormous deal flow. We have 2,000 startups. We got like, I called one of our 2 in-house lawyers. He's like, we got two public benefit corps. Statistically, on VCs, it's like 1% to 3% are public benefit corps, right? Okay, how about, how would you feel as an investor about if you were told, we want a nonprofit to control the board seats of this company? How would you feel about it? You're an investor. How would you feel about it? That was good. We got some yeses, though. This is good. I want to hear this. This is fair. All right. And so now what if they said, we want to have dual class shares? I'm Mark Zuckerberg. I've got all the power, and you have the other shares, but you don't have the power shares. And I mean, honestly, Mohan, I want to see your hand. How do you feel if you were to hear this from people? Yeah, some people like this idea. Some people like the way you must be very, 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 very bullish on your company. Okay, switch minds for a second. And now I'm pretty sure almost everyone here has been a founder at some point of something. But even if you haven't, put yourself in founder mind. Is any of these options something you've thought about or wished you could do? Same thing. I'm like this. I did 6 startups before I was 32. I wish they could all be like this. Yeah, like so in between this desire and this reality, this system. Yeah, south is yes, north is no. Yeah. And so here we have this challenge, this paradox. Yeah. You're biting into a monster, right? Like good for you. Good for you.
Well, we'll see if it turns out to be good for me or not.
But how do you feel about that thing? We'll get into long-term stock exchange. We'll get into some examples, but just that very, like, I think the difference is everyone would agree with you in principle. Yeah. And then there's the reality. Yeah. But we'll get into why this is a problem in a second, but tell us your feelings.
I don't mind. Like, I'm used to trying to tackle problems that everyone widely considers to be impossible. Yeah. Like, I've gotten over it. It's been a long time since it bothered me to try to assess the probability of success of some kind of massive change. Like, I think if you're going to be around startups at some level, you have to let that go. Mm-hmm. You don't really know what's possible until you try. We all pay lip service to that, but I can't tell you how many people I meet with. I was meeting with a CEO the other day, very mission-driven company, very much in line with the ideas in the book. And I was like, look, I want, this is before the book had come out. So I was like, look, I'd like you to, would you consider you're already doing this stuff. Yeah. Would you be willing to talk about it and tell people that you think this is a good idea? He was like, well, gosh, I don't know. It seems like what probability would you assess of your ability to change the whole financial system to these ideas? It seems kind of low to me. I was like, yeah, it is kind of low. But what does that have to do with anything? He's like, well, I don't really want to say anything unless you can assure me that it's going to work. I was like, oh, I see. So the fact that it works for you is not good enough. It has to work. We have to already have won. The revolution has to already be a success. And I wasn't even asking him to do anything other than open his mouth and say, yes, I think this is a good idea. And this is like so typical. We've all been kind of indoctrinated into this idea that until someone else solves the collective action problem for us, we can't take any collective action. And if you think about that, like that whole idea is designed to protect the status quo. And protect it from what? Like I don't really understand why people get so tangled on that question. So what I love about your intro, first of all, thank you for doing this, and thank you all for being here. When things succeed, they are retroactively deemed to have been not difficult, so that therefore you don't have to confront the fact that the impossible has been accomplished, because obviously it wasn't impossible. It obviously could be done. Most people now cannot remember a time when lean startup was not considered like relatively obvious. In fact, I meet new founders now that are like,
right. Oh, of course.
Oh, yeah. Like they're like, wait, somebody had to invent that? Like, didn't everyone just know that? And they're like, well, it must have been invented.
And also, this is how recent, I've done this. I was like, when do you think lean startup was written? They'd be like, oh, that was like the thing that got us out of the .com. It was like 2003. It was 2011, people, just so you know.
Oh yeah, I had some young entrepreneur being like, I figured it was written in the 80s or something. Yeah. It's like, you don't even know when the 80s were, man. So I can remember people saying that lean startup was foolhardy and impossible and you couldn't do it. And for the same reasons. They'd be like, well, VCs will never go for it. These guys, this thing will never happen. This thing will never happen. At the end of the day, if you look back on the arc of that transformation, if founders want something, they can have it. That's really it. At the end of the day, investors wield tremendous power in our society, but only indirectly. Investors do not do the thing itself. Founders do the thing itself. So my perspective is if founders want a different economic system, they can have it. That's it. And you say, well, sure, maybe that's true in venture, but Wall Street would never go. Let me just tell you quickly, just quick little stat. If you look at the graph of the total number of public companies that exist in the United States, it goes like this. We're down by more than half in the last 25 years. If you look at the graph of average lifespan of companies in the S&P 500, guess what it looks like? Exactly the same. You want to guess what the average holding period of stocks graph looks like?
Oh, wait, that's got to be seconds.
Oh my
Less
God.
than
It's
seconds.
just like it used to be like 25, 30 years ago. It used to be like, I can't remember the numbers offhand. I don't want to say it wrong, but I think it was like 8 years on average. Now it's 6 months on average. Like these graphs are all collapse. Average executive and CEO tenure, collapse. And of course, trusted institutions looks exactly the same. Collapse. In the book, I call it an age of temporary organizations being led by temporary managers for the benefit of temporary owners. And then we're like, why does no one trust anyone anymore? It's like, what did you expect? So I bring this up because if the total number of companies is decreasing, if companies are being destroyed, that's because this system destroys value. The average, I can't remember the exact number now, but if you look at the value creation of the entire stock market over the past 30 years, a very small number of companies account for all the net new value creation, and everything else is value destruction. So this thing is a very destructive system, even judged on its own terms, let alone the social, economic, moral, ethical, environmental catastrophes that it causes. Which means that in order to keep going, it requires a steady supply of fresh meat. It must have new companies join it all the time, or it would utterly collapse. So guess who are the dealers of the fresh meat? Look around. That's our job. That's the role we play in society. So we actually get to decide. Do we want to play by these rules or a different set of rules? Do we want this system or a different system? So I actually do not think this is a collective action problem. I do not think it is even a systems or systems change problem. And in fact, it was very difficult, but I accepted the challenge to write this book without making any policy recommendations at all. Not one. You read the whole book, it is only focused on what we as leaders can do in our own organizations.
Yeah.
The power that we wield as leaders, as board members, as investors, as employees, as consumers. And I did that because the book in a lot of ways is kind of old-fashioned. I feel like we're just like obsessed with the question of like, what should companies be allowed to do? Like, should they be allowed to commit fraud? Apparently, we've decided, yeah, they can. Are they allowed to break the law? Sure. Are they accountable for anything at all? We've decided basically no. Okay. But we rarely discuss the question of what should we as leaders, what ought we to want to do? Yes, you can get away with building a sociopathic, destructive company that is as addicted to its quarterly reports as a customers you serve are addicted to your products. But do you want to do that? Yes, you could get super rich but doing that, but is that really what you want? Is that why you got into this business in the first place? I just feel like that is the space that is kind of tragically underexplored. So yeah, in the book, I wanted to lay out the evidence we have that there is a better way of building and structuring organizations, that this can prevent many of the tragedies we've all seen in our ecosystem, left, right, and center, companies that become malign, bureaucratic, founders losing control of their companies. We can get into all that stuff if you guys want.
We will. It's, you know, the book is very historical as well. There's stories throughout the book. There's stories of recent history. And one of the things that does come across is you kind of unearth all this stuff. Like, we buy and use things from certain corporations that are kind of hiding in plain sight. Yeah. We just didn't realize, 51% is owned by a nonprofit, or, they had this philosophy. Mention a few of those examples, because it's not like nobody's doing this. To your point,
that's
people are doing it, and it is working for them. But to your point, they just didn't want to talk about it.
Well, I think that has been one of the most interesting things about this. So, I tell the story in the book about Anthropic, and what's funny is that when I was working on this book, Anthropic was not that famous of a company. And then the timing has kind of worked out that, like, you can imagine, the process. Until the book was printed, I had to be revising it every single day.
Yeah.
With, like, what is the latest news
on
Anthropic?
No, like the scene, I'm going to ask you, the scene with him and Dario is on page 235, if you want to jump ahead.
Yeah, exactly. But, like, listen, and because mostly because I don't want to be claiming to take credit for Anthropic's success, okay? They were obviously, I played a very big part in the story. But I remember that they have the two-entity structure where the company is governed by a long-term benefit trust, outside trustees that can appoint directors to the for-profit board.
Uncompensated trustees.
Yeah, they're uncompensated. Yeah, they don't own stock in the main company. Anyway, it's one of many things they did to ensure mission protection, and it's one of the to me, one of the clear reasons why they've been acting far more courageously than many of their peers. You all know what I'm talking about, so we don't have to go into that. When we were talking to investors about it, they'd be like, well, this sounds like some newfangled thing. And like, well, actually, sir, did you know that the German optics company Zeiss, who makes the lenses in your glasses, had this structure in 1887? So just because it's new to you doesn't actually make it new. And people will be like, okay, so that one company has it. But like, well, also IKEA. You've been ever shopped at IKEA?
Every German company has
a lot of German
employee
companies,
representation on the board.
And if you if you've ever eaten a Hershey chocolate bar, like why is Cadbury destroyed but Hershey is endured? Because the founder idiosyncratically assigned ownership of the Hershey Corporation to a nonprofit school in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Like that wasn't even a particularly good choice, and that's worked pretty well. Anyway, there's enough of these companies. If you know John Lewis Partnership in the UK, or you have a Vanguard mutual fund, or you've bought a Patagonia fleece, I can do this all day. Taking a Novo Nordisk medication. There's so many of these companies that we interact with every day. But we don't really realize that if you take that set of companies as a class, first of all, the data shows they have something like 5 times the longevity on average compared to conventional companies. So if you'd like your company to live, for example, to year 50, this is a technology that can dramatically increase the odds of that happening. And they also financially outperform. And I could give you reams and reams of academic data. So that's one thing most people have never heard of or don't know. The other thing that's really interesting about them is that as a class, they completely defy our modern ideas about what are the best practices, about how companies are supposed to be built, operated, and governed. So people find that very hard to believe because they're like, look, it's right in the name. They're the best practices. They're the best. So are you saying that there's like a set of better practices that are like widely known and studied that have been erased and we don't know about them? That can't possibly be true, right? That seems just incredible to imagine. And yet, if you read the book, I think we have the receipts. That's exactly what's going on. If you meet the academics who study, the book is full of leadership and governance evidence. And each of the insoluble problems that we consider like so difficult to solve about business, executive compensation, employee alignment, the general problem of trust and trustworthiness, the ability to invest in R&D countercyclically, the ability to defend a commitment to quality or to humanity or to safety or whatever, any extra financial commitments. Anyway, each of these problems, most people tell me, are insoluble. I kind of frame it in the book as the question of, is it inevitable that a company will become corrupted as it gets bigger? Everyone knows that it's inevitable. So what's the point of talking about it? Yet, if it was inevitable, how could there be exceptions? Isn't that weird? It's all these exceptions just wandering around. So if you talk to the academics who study each of those specific things, you'll be like, hey, I want to ask your advice about this insoluble problem. And they'll be like, oh, that's not an insoluble problem. Oh, really? Oh, yeah, it's totally solved. What do you mean solved? Oh, yeah, we worked it out decades ago. Everyone knows that this is a solved problem. Like, could you define everyone for me? Like, does it bother you that no practitioners in the world have any idea what you're talking about? And they're like, not really. That's not really my department. Maybe they'd be like, maybe you could do something about that. Well, yeah, you're damn right. I could do something about that. And so a huge part of the book is just bringing this massive evidence to light so that we can start using it in the way that we build companies so that they can be defended against these forces that are arrayed against them.
So let's, on behalf of the audience, let's just try to we're hinting at the direction. We're continuing to hint at it, but let's just kind of talk about like what we're talking about, which is, I mentioned public benefit corporation. I mentioned nonprofits. It could be as simple as changing the initial words in your stock certificate that isn't your normal general purpose language. There's a whole variety of toolkit here that Eric goes through in the book that essentially is trying to look after more than just the one thing that the general purpose clause that's in every stock certificate for a Delaware corp basically means you have to optimize making profit, especially in any short-term circumstance. And if you can state as a mission that we have more than that as our mission, we can think about all the stakeholders in the business. We can care about innovation. We can care about people. Like, we just declare that. It's not like complicated legalese necessarily. It's just widening the stakeholders that allows you to continue to reinvest in a company, to continue to grow it rather than squeeze it for cash.
Yeah.
Yeah, and share a little more about like the toolkit so people can understand this. Because I think you have everybody at Hello here. You have people with the mission, but the question is, what are you talking about actually doing?
I love that when you asked people about whether they were in favor of at the beginning, you framed it in the worst way possible. Because if you'd been like, who wants to build a mission-driven company? Yeah. Everyone would have been pointing straight. Everyone would be pointing straight to Silicon Valley. Well, most people who think they're building a mission-driven company aren't. They're at best creating what I call a mission-hopeful company, because their legal charter says that they have to maximize shareholder value. So if you were going around telling your friends and your employees and your customers that you're a mission-driven company, but if I go X-ray and I see in the legal charter maximize shareholder value, then you are lying. You are lying to your customers. You are lying to your employees. You're probably lying to yourself about what is going to happen to this company in the future. So the public,
and this is a very real thing, just to make sure you're clear.
Sure.
Like, under any sort of pressure, you can get sued if you don't, at that point in time, pursue the path of maximizing value. Yeah. Especially when you don't have a whole lot of options. Normally, long-term gain can also be a thing under the general purpose clause. It can. But under any sort of intense negotiation or pressure, if you didn't take the path of maximum profit, you could be sued.
Yeah, you could be removed.
And your lawyer will tell you that. And you're like, okay, we'll go that way. Like, so it's an actual mechanism that is actually interpreted by long case law that we don't even need to have lawsuits over it, that forces these decisions on boards.
So this idea, the kind of the mess that we're in is under the academia, it goes under the heading of shareholder primacy. I don't know if people have heard the phrase shareholder primacy, meaning it's like the purpose of a corporation. Its legal purpose is to enrich its shareholders. That's what it's for. So you suckers, you thought you were building a vital, beautiful, living superorganism designed to create quality products and make your customers' lives better. Like, joke's on you. Actually, no, you just created a financial instrument for the enrichment of shareholders. Didn't you know? Did you not get the memo? You can't believe how naive all these governance experts think you guys are. Like, just absolute chumps. And they're like, look, it doesn't matter. We'll just wait till they get big enough and then send them right out the airlock. And then we'll get what we want. So if you go talk to your lawyer about this and say, Eric got me real worried about what are called mission protective provisions. I'm going to need some of those in my charter. Can you help me out with that? They're not going to say no. They'll be like, oh, sure, absolutely. But does it seem kind of early to worry about that? We'll just do it later. You're like, oh, okay, later. When's a good time? Whatever, later. Okay, fine. You raise a Series A. Hey, is this a good time now? I think now might be a good time. We got these new board members who are on your board. They're like, we're so aligned. There's hardly any need for it. Let's just do it later. Oh, okay, fine. You get some growth investors on your board, and the bold, contrarian growth investors are like, you don't want to be too different from everybody else.
This is exactly what it's like.
We're
every round. Exactly,
and you're like, so let's
saying.
just do it later. Then it's like IPO prep time. I have actually sat in the room where the CEO is like talking to their CFO and their GC and their bankers and everyone around the table. Now you get this entourage of people who are designed to do this transaction for you. And he's like, hey, CFO, remember that thing we were talking about? Like, we were going to put a bunch of the stock aside, for the benefit of to have broadly shared prosperity, or we're going to do the PBC convert. Did we ever get around any of that stuff? And the CFO's like, oh, you were serious about that? Yeah, you should have said something. I did say something and you said it was too early. Yeah, it was. What about now? Now it's too late. When the F was at the right time. Oh, that's like, sorry, buddy. What are you going to do? Postpone the IPO? Yeah. I have watched that negotiation play out so many times. I have watched CEO after CEO after CEO fold like a cheap table. Because what can they do? At that point, it's too freaking late. So the most important idea, before we get into the what of what to do, the most important idea in the book is that it's always too early until it's too late. If you want to do this, do it while you actually still can. Now, what's funny about that is, take the Public Benefit Corp example. Public Benefit Corp, just for those that don't know what it is, this is not some newfangled weird thing. For the vast majority of the hundreds of years there have been joint stock corporations wandering this earth, it was considered to be obvious to everyone that they were far too dangerous to exist unless they existed for some specific purpose. And that purpose had to have a defined public benefit. So in the 19th century in America, if you went to your local state legislature, that's how you had to do it, said, I would like to create a company. And they say, what's your idea for a company? I'd like to create a company that's a financial instrument to enrich me and my shareholder buddies. They'd be like, rejected. You'd be like, never mind. What I meant was I want to create a railroad. They're like, why? to enrich myself and my shareholder buddies. Rejected. You had to be like, no, it's actually really valuable to our society to move people from point A to point B. So I think we should dig a canal. And they'd be like, okay, approved. So every company had to have a defined purpose and a defined public benefit, or it couldn't form at all.
But then there was a period where if that railroad now started to offer a different type of transportation, they could get sued.
Yeah, because you went beyond the scope.
You went for going beyond the scope of that mission. And so that the cascade led to this general purpose clause.
Yeah, exactly. So, but just to really understand this, if you forcibly took over a company because you were the richest man in America and you're just like, I want to change what they do to make it whatever I want, like that would have been considered a crime. They would void your charter. You would get the corporate death penalty. That wasn't that long ago. This changed in Delaware in 1899. So this is not like some ancient pillar of capitalism that's super important. The specific change from what was called general incorporation in 1899 to shareholder primacy in Delaware, that happened in 1986. Some of us were even alive then. It's not that long ago. There are trees in local parks older than this idea. Now, you might say, well, how is it done? Did we have a big state-by-state legislative debate? Don't kid yourself. This idea has never in the history of the world ever in any country, state, or city ever been subjected to any manner of democratic referendum or legislative action. It was just decided by a bunch of lawyers, legal academics, and judges. They just decided it one day that the legal purpose of a corporation is to enrich its shareholders. That's all it is. So, Public Benefit Corp is an option to just be like, no, I don't agree. My corporation exists to do something specific, like the old-timey way. It is a 2-page legal filing. You can do it in Delaware. Your lawyer can have it done for you tomorrow. After you get through all it's too early, you don't really need to do it. You can just be like, actually, you work for me, and I would like to do it. You could just do it. There's nothing difficult, controversial, or expensive about it. There's absolutely no downside or drawback. And I know that sounds absurd. You're like, wait, you're telling me this is like this massive meteor is like coming towards Earth, is going to destroy my company utterly, and I can solve it with this one weird trick? Yeah. Sorry, that's it. Why did you have to hear about it from me?
Explain mission law. Importantly, once you do it, you can't undo it, right?
Yeah. Well, so if you want to amend it, if everyone agrees, of course, you can amend it at any time. But the goal by itself, PPC is not going to help you that much, okay? PPC is like a very specific piece of armor. If someone tries to like stab you in the shoulder, you want to have plate mail on your shoulder. But don't be like, oh, my shoulder's invulnerable, I can never die. It's like, you could be stabbed other places, okay? If you read the book, you'll see there's many stories of companies that were betrayed by their own board. It's extremely common for independent directors to just spontaneously decide that they would like to sell your company for no particular reason. They think that's considered good governance. If you read the documents that define what good governance is, you will find that the word mission does not appear in the document. Your mission is not considered an important factor in governance. So if you notice, many of the most mission-driven companies in the world routinely get bad governance ratings. Hilariously to me, since 2008, companies that are rated to have bad governance have outperformed companies rated to have good governance.
Oh, wow.
So what the F are we doing here? Who's it for? Like, this whole thing is an absolute house of cards. So anyway, going back to the individual founder choice, our goal is to achieve a phenomenon I call mission lock. How can we arrange the company so that it can never deviate from its mission in the future, so that we can make promises that people can believe? Otherwise, we're just a bunch of liars. Who wants that?
Okay, but now we have a new thing stirring the pot.
Yeah.
Okay. And we have these incredibly fast-growing AI labs who have alternative governance.
They do.
And the way I decided to market today's event, don't know if you saw that, was that despite the fact that the leading companies in the AI space have decided they need to have some form of alternative governance, and we normally spend our time debating about one versus another, but they all have them, even Palantir, right? But meanwhile, every day we fund new startups. I do, every day here we fund new startups that are under the old boilerplate.
Yeah.
And just as an example, because it just comes to mind, some of you might have seen an art exhibit on the other side of this green wall as you walked in. A bunch of cotton bowls hanging from strings. That was an art exhibit from one of our companies. It was put up in London, and they didn't have a place to put it, so they I was their first investor. I invested in it before they turned the AI on. The AI is so good at taking a seed or even a 6-day-old embryo cell and being able to tell you exactly how big it's going to be when it grows up, exactly how many seeds it's going to have, what color its leaves are going to be. It's so good at that. Most AIs can only be about 20% accurate. They're 99% accurate. It's so good at that we're doing that in a domain where this kind of thing is accepted. You can breed plants, right? But we don't breed humans, right? That's not okay. But it's a large genomic model. It works on humans too. It could totally go into a petri dish, shoot that back over, and tell you from a few cells what your baby's going to grow up to be. And they're like, we need a board, we need something, we need a governance layer, right? And startup after startup, that actually is powerful. I know there's every startup uses AI, and there's a lot of AI startups. I'll just tell you, I have a test of what's a real AI company and what's not a real AI company.
That's right.
Real AI companies scare you, and not real AI ones don't scare you. That's a real. It's like, oh God, that's scary. That could take over the world and dominate. And when it has that kind of power, and we're launching these things every day, they're under the old boilerplate.
It's incredibly irresponsible to do that. Honestly, we have to acknowledge this ourselves. Your book got me thinking about this.
I'm glad. I'm glad it did.
That's the whole idea. I have a bunch of scary examples in the book for this exact reason, because you just have to imagine. Okay, I actually opened the book with a professor building a biotech startup. Actually, one of the first stories in the book, and he called me for advice because he's building this thing. I don't want to out him who he is, so I'll be a little bit vague about what the technology does, but definitely scare the shit out of me. It was in the AI bioscience space, okay? And he's like, I can't get the top talent in the world to join my company unless I promise them that we will never allow this technology to be used in these bad ways.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants to become the villain in some future sci-fi movie / short story. If you've read a short story novel or watched a movie where this is the villain's origin story you just told me. We don't want that to be we don't have technology. Our technology is designed to help and heal people. He's like, well, don't worry. I've got such great intentions. And they're like, that's not really getting it done. That's not really working for me. So can you tell me something more? He's like, well, I promise I'll never let that happen. It's like, but aren't we a for-profit company? Couldn't our investors pressure us to do just that very thing if it was profitable to do so? He's like, no, I would never let them. But couldn't they fire you if they don't like what you're doing? What about the new person? He's like, what am I supposed to tell them? Meanwhile, when he would meet with investors, he'd be like, I have this concern. They'd be like, so condescending, like, oh, sweetheart. Oh, I guess you're not that serious about running a for-profit company now, are you? He's like, what can I do? So anyway, I'm trying to help him. And I've had a lot of people call me with this exact dilemma. I was like, look, if you want to attract the top talent to your company, you have to be able to promise them that you know what the company stands for, what it is going to do. It has to be mission driven, which means the promise has to endure even if you die. It has to be woven into the structure of the company itself. And people hear that and they're like, oh, this is going to be some ethical, moral, ESG bullshit. Great. And it's like, no, this is actually one of the most vital forms of competitive advantage you can have. You hear people talk about Anthropic now. They're like, Anthropic has lower inference costs on their models. That's one of the reasons they're going to win. Why? Oh, because their technical architecture is superior. Why? Oh, because they got the best talent. Why? Because people want to be the good guys, so they want to go work there. Why? Because they believe what the leadership says. Why? Because they are backed by a structure that they actually have the strength to do what they think is right. I can do that same game with any of the 20. You're like, it's not because of the inference. It's because they're more focused. Oh yeah, why? We could do that with any of the supposed advantages that these mission-driven companies have. This is not just my opinion. This is not just Anthropic, the anecdote. There's tremendous data in the book that companies that are able to do this, that are purpose-driven, mission-driven, that can be trusted, have these commercial advantages. So if we learn to structure companies so that they are what I call mission-controlled, we can reap those advantages for ourselves. And then not only will we sleep better at night, we'll actually probably make more money, because we'll be able to sustain the thing that made the company worth investing in the first place. And since the book has been published, people have been coming out of the woodwork, both to tell me their horror stories of companies that have been corrupted. Many of them involve a story, some of them are funny. They're like, oh, my favorite restaurant got taken over by private equity. you're like, oh, congratulations. I bet with all those extra financial resources, the food got more delicious, right? Yeah. Why is everyone laughing? Because we all know that's not what happened. The food became disgusting. How can the capital structure of a company have a flavor? You can taste it in the food. It's disgusting. So like, enough. But like, that's funny. Okay, whatever. This is not funny. And I give the example in the book of a weather control company that's like working on changing the amount of arable land on the planet Earth. And that's a super controversial topic. And I remember talking to the founder. I was like, look, I want you to really visualize this exact future scenario. You build this company. You have all this leverage. You got everything's exactly the way that you want, but you have standard governance. And one day your board is like, since we're supposed to maximize shareholder value, couldn't we approach some city or region and be like, hey, you should probably pay us to help you optimize your rainfall. Be a shame if anything happened to it. If you don't, we're going to go to the city next door and optimize their rainfall. Like you wouldn't have to do anything at all. You would actually never have to deploy one piece of technology. If people believe you could make that credible threat, you could blackmail the world like a supervillain and make a lot of money, right? You don't have to have a private equity firm force you to do that. Your board might just wake up one day and say, I think that's what our fiduciary duty is. And it's over. It's too late. So don't put this off. Do it before you're in that kind of situation.
And just another round will happen and clock's ticking and everybody who's been on your side all along is suddenly like, yeah, kind of clock's ticking at our fund too. And just kind of just goes in this direction.
Totally.
And
people really misunderstand what a venture firm is, like metaphysically speaking. It is a company. It is a corporation. So you might even have the greatest mind meld ever with a certain person. You put them on your board. I had this happen to a real deep tech company. This is not that long ago. Really great venture firm, had invested several rounds in a row, really supportive partner on the board. And then the firm had a civil war. The partners went to war with each other and half of them left. And our guy was in the losing half. So all of a sudden, that board seat's not controlled by that person. A new person shows up, person we've never seen before. Is like, hi, I'm your new board member. We're like, great, we need to raise more money. Would you like to invest in this company? He's like, no. It's like, okay, but, we're one of your biggest investments, so you don't want to help us out? He's like, well, what's in it for me? We're like, well, if we're successful, we'll be one of the biggest returns. And he's like, yeah, I know, but that's going to happen anyway. If I permit you to raise this round of capital, what's in it for me? And the founders called me horrified, like, well, he's got all these veto rights in the docs. What can we tell him? And I was like, well, remember we had that conversation about mission protection at the beginning? Did you do any of that stuff? Our lawyers told us we didn't have to worry about it. It's too early to worry about that. Can we do it now? No, you're fucked. Okay? Like, I don't want to, like, I feel like I'm like the Mr. Scary Ghost Stories guy, like, you need to understand that this kind of stuff actually happened. And if it happens to you, it's not like a movie. There's no magic cavalry going to ride in to save you. You just die. The thing becomes horrible. So you don't want that. You don't want that to happen to you.
But I think attracting talent, because you're telling that story very well, in a world where talent is more critical than capital, then we have a chance, which is to attract the best talent. You set these things in place, and it becomes your wedge. 100%. It's a talent thing, and then people are like, hey, if it does get us the best talent, then that maybe is going to help our investment more than our other governments.
Totally, exactly right.
And so like there's this point. I mean, like in this AI world now, like I've seen so many people do deals that are like, I don't know, but the guy worked at XAI for 6 months, or the guy, is ex Google, I'm funding it. Like, like they don't even know what startup's doing. And rather betting on the talent and the ability to attract talent is huge. And that's just clear signal as to like who's good, who's bad.
Yeah.
And really talented people don't go join up with other dummies. They kind of do the diligence for you. So we have this wedge now, like in the AI world, with the social ramifications of it, with the war for talent, with the fact that we're seeing in front of our eyes how Anthropic can attract talent. And it creates a chance to build a new code that is built around for the purpose of attracting better talent. Yeah. And I think that's what I kind of want. I want you to say, like, because I think that's where you have power on the other side of the table against the lawyers and the financiers.
Yeah.
Right. and they know that the talent war wins. So even to some of my startups, not that we're structured correctly, I'd say we're not according to your schematics, but that, emphasize all the time. We hired so-and-so. Let's emphasize how that person turned down jobs at other places.
Yeah.
I funded a company. I'm always telling people, they turned down DeepMind, and is out of Imperial. And they're like, don't tell people that. Like, it's like maybe not fair. So don't put that in the press release. Okay, won't put it in the release. But you did. Like,
it happens to be true. That's the journalist in you still speaking. No, but listen, it's very powerful for you as a VC to be saying that, because this is a source of commercial advantage. That the data is really overwhelming. The book is loaded with endnotes for this reason. Because this is not just my opinion. And it's kind of funny. I feel like we're in such a dark timeline now that I have to go around, like, people are like, don't emphasize that this is the moral and ethical thing to do. People don't like to hear that. Tell them they can do the right thing for the wrong reasons. And like that's better somehow. So like, okay, you could do the right thing for the wrong reasons. You don't have to do it for the right reasons. And I joke about that, but like, actually, I know most of you want to do this for its own sake. Not like the fact that it gives you commercial advantage is secondary. The reason you need to know that evidence cold is the reason that Poe's talking about. You will have to convince other people over and over and over again that this makes sense. And so you have to practice making the case that this is commercially necessary. And yeah, the advantages that are in the data, just for people to know, talent advantage is huge. Alignment advantage is huge. Companies that have this characteristic, they raise money at lower rates. They have lower partnership costs because they can establish mutual trust with their trading partners. And they have customers who are more loyal. Like, what's funny to me is I meet CEOs all the time who call me for advice, and I'm like, okay, what are the biggest number one problems in your business that you would do anything to solve? I'm like, God, if I could just get the best talent, if I could just get my fickle customers to be and show me any loyalty whatsoever, and if I could just get my employees to actually do what I tell them. Like, think about how many controversies we've had that are the form like, I can't get my employees to work remotely. Now I can't get them to come back in the office. I couldn't get my employees to use AI. Now I can't get them to stop using AI. Like, whatever the thing is you want them to do, they're not doing it. Oh, God, those problems drive me crazy. You're like, great. What if I had a new technology that would solve that problem for you? I would do anything for it. Is it some kind of AI thing? Can I just push a button? Well, no, unfortunately, you have to actually, be a mission-driven leader and change your behavior. And like, well, what else you got? Right? Okay. You told us the number one problem. Now you don't want the number one problem solved? Well,
you're an investor too. I know you don't do it like a machine like we do it here, but like you're always have been an investor. Yeah. And, how many times have you been able to, separate from like consulting them, so to put as an investor hat a little bit, even like, have you done like I'll invest if you do this governance stuff? Have you started to make it a requirement to get you on their cap table?
Well, it's not like that. Because the word has gotten around, because I've gotten the chance to do this with some notable companies, I now get the calls where people are like, can you help us do this thing?
Yeah.
Like, can we put you on the cap table to signal to other people that we did it? I'm like, absolutely, but then you actually have to do it. Some people are like, oh, never mind. Oh, sorry, that sounds like hard work. But no, I try really hard to work with companies. And a lot of the knowledge I have in this book comes from having just done this with company after company after company. Like there's whole sections of the book. There's a section called How to Talk to Your Lawyer About This. There's a separate section for how to talk to your investors about this. There's a whole third section for how to deal with people who are passive-aggressively just asking questions about it. And all of those sections, I just took notes. For years, I kept a log of just every dumb question that every one of my founders heard from somebody else, or every objection they heard from an investor, every lawyer that refused to do it. I'd be like, tell me what they said. I will write it down, and I will help you figure out how to answer that objection. But I will also, that's still going straight in the book. And it's just like, if you look at those sections as a whole, I hope what you'll notice is so many of the objections are fundamentally non-substantive. It's like, this sounds weird. It's like, we're working on immortality, dude. That's pretty weird, okay? This is not that weird. Compared to the things we do in our day job, like other people might not, I like it, but other people might not like it. I joked about the bold contrarianism, but like everyone knows the only way to make any money is to be non-consensus and right. So we're right, and this is definitely non-consensus. What's the problem? VCs used to talk all the time about missionaries versus mercenaries. The same VCs who talk about that incessantly, you can't shut them up. They have been trained, indoctrinated that when they become a board member, Now they have to put a different hat on. And now like mission goes from the most important thing in the universe to like the dessert you get to eat after you eat your vegetables of being a serious business or whatever. So I just think we have to let this go. This is not the kind of companies we want to make. And so my goal, I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. If you tell me I want to build a company that has a fiduciary duty only to its shareholders, my employees, my customers, my communities be damned, good luck to you. Okay, you want to build a sociopathic company? Who am I to tell you not to do that? I've never once in my life ever succeeded in talking a sociopath out of being a sociopath. Impossible. But most people aren't like that. Most founders don't start out that way. Some of them end up that way because this force is psychological, but they don't start out that way. And my goal, if that's you, is to give you the tools you need to defend that intuition against all these pressures, all these arguments, and all this BS. That's it.
It feels like we need some version of the instrument we all use, the 𝗏𝗔 post money safe. Yeah. And maybe it's like you upload it to 𝗏𝗀𝗃 or something and it's there. And then it's like, I mean, I think we're all still kind of probably, I'm kind of wondering like, what would be the simplest way to put this into place in my certificate, I guess you're saying, or in my board structure? Like if you're at a stage 0 startup, like, what's the, and then maybe there would be some add-ons and I can have fries with that or something. Give people like the most basic thing that they could do.
Okay, so I
guarantee there's people in this room who, have had grant money, they have this and that, they're about to start a company. And it doesn't.
Oh, that's but it's by far the easiest time. Okay, so if you pull your copy of the book out, there are QR codes you can scan. You can get what I call the implementation guide, and there's a separate QR code for the advanced implementation guide. And all of the templates, documents, term sheets, I had the law firm that I helped found called 𝗔𝗁 publish all this stuff. So you could just copy paste all the things you need. They're all right there.
And get the NVCA to adopt it as a non-model document.
Which one of us is a member of the NVCA? It's not me.
Oh, I am.
Yeah, so maybe you should get them to adopt it. Yeah, okay. Exactly. Yeah, somebody should really do that. I so agree.
All right.
There's a bunch of VCs in this room. You guys should do it. Absolutely. You want to build mission. You want to, like, what's so funny to me is like, we have, obviously VCs have been on an all-time tear lately of like trying to ruin the reputation of Silicon Valley in the world and turn us into villains that everybody hates. And then they send the NVCA to lobby in DC to try to get stuff done. And it's like, it would be a lot easier. It would be a lot easier if people didn't hate our guts. Maybe try that. And since it's what founders want and it's what the public wants and it's what your LPs want, I don't know, maybe we could try it. So yeah, I think that's a really good idea. So anyway, in the implementation guides, what you will find is, this is how we did it at Anthropic. And I just really think this is just the way. Let's say you want to have what's called a perpetual purpose trust or a nonprofit be part of the governance of the company. It's annoying to have to set up a nonprofit on day one of your company. You're busy just trying to create your company. You don't need to do that. All you have to do is write into the corporate charter that you will do it. Just allocate 10% of the shares to this future nonprofit. The shares are worth nothing. So 10% of nothing is still nothing. Nobody will care. You can just do it. Allocate a bunch of board seats that can be appointed by the trustees of the nonprofit. Just say that you will do it. And if you're going to do dual class shares, which I know a lot of you will, dual class shares are better than standard governance, although being despotic emperor for life is actually not as cracked up as it sounds. So maybe not want to do that for your whole life. But if you're going to have that protection, I think it makes sense at the early stage. Just write into the document that if the dual class protections ever expire for any reason, this other structure pops into existence at that time. Just view it as a belt and suspenders. And people will tell you, your lawyers will tell you, your investors will be like, well, it's redundant. What do you need the belt and the suspenders for? You're like, great. If it's redundant, then it's not harmful to have it, is it? So we'll just stick it in there just in case. Now, I cannot promise you that in every venture round you raise, you will always have the leverage necessary to survive due diligence with these procedures. Occasionally, you will meet an investor that just won't do it, and they have the leverage and you don't, and you need the money and you have to take the stuff out. It will happen. But give yourself a chance. If you don't do it, it definitely won't happen. And if you do it, okay, you can always capitulate. It can happen. That's not the end of the world. It won't prevent you from getting the round done. In fact, they'll really enjoy the extraction of the pound of flesh they got from you. And probably they didn't take this, they would have had to take something else. So maybe actually you're still ahead.
Good. I want to turn it over for questions, but we don't have microphones in the audience, and this is being streamed, so I will have to repeat your question for you, and then we'll let Eric answer.
Okay, so don't make them too long.
Yeah, don't make them too long. My context window is like this. But also, let's try to be on topic. I know every anybody ever meets Eric wants to ask him, what's the one piece of advice you would give an entrepreneur like you?
My favorite of my friends' companies having this really difficult situation.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah,
It's okay.
exactly. Yeah. Who wants to dare go first, please? Yeah, sir. Thank you.
Question is establishing a formal mission statement for the company, is that constraining or prevent you from doing things you want to do? Is there a way to amend it in the future? So first of all, unfortunately, the Public Benefit Corp mission statement is not constraining at all. So it doesn't force you to do a thing. It only allows you to defend yourself if someone tries to force you not to do the thing.
Right.
So in general, I recommend you pick a statement that's quite high concept, high level, to maximize human flourishing by making a thing is pretty good. But I give examples of actual statements that people use in the book, the actual legal language that we used at Answer AI, that they use at Anthropic. Like this, there's a bunch of examples you can draw from. If to actually constrain, you have to do something more. You just fundamentally cannot constrain anybody by putting something on paper. Constraint has to be done like the Federalist Papers, faction against faction. That's why the multi-tier systems work so well. Just like having a system of checks and balances in a government. You might have heard of that. Remember that? Used to be something we widely agreed on. I don't know anymore if we do. But anyway, in corporate governance, it's super helpful. That's what the data shows. So for that, you have to have outside trustees or some kind of outside force that can intervene and make judgments about, basically be like a court of appeals in case someone tries to take the company off mission. However, even for people that don't want to do that, the other thing you could do is try to bind the decision-making of the board of directors. Directors have far too much latitude, in my humble opinion. Independent directors especially are far more likely to be aligned to the interests of the financial system than to your interests, despite their vaunted independence. That's what the data shows. So one thing you could do if you're not courageous enough to do the full-blown blueprint, a kind of not as good thing, but still pretty good, is to create what's called a director's oath. Like the Hippocratic oath that doctors have to take. I think directors should have to take a comparable oath that says that they commit to serve the mission. You can write that into your corporate charter, that's a requirement for being on the board. You might laugh, but oaths work. The evidence shows that people who take an oath of office are much more likely to do the thing.
Into a high-stress situation, you get your counsel on the line, and they remind you of the laws as they apply to you. They remind you that you're not the only shareholders here we have to protect. If you took an oath, they remind you of your oath.
Yeah, because they don't want you to violate it. And that becomes the things
that you abide by to not get sued.
Yeah.
And then it really does help.
Yeah. It has a big effect.
Yes, please. Let me paraphrase, and then you got a little more. She's saying the system is incentivized so much to inertia of how it is already. So she's asking, what would it really take to disturb this incredible inertia that's going on? She's describing that she'd been biopharma for a long time, and no matter how focused and how hard she and her friends worked to diagnose disease early, to treat disease, our healthcare system is ultimately incentivized to keep people in a disease state and not keep them healthy, because then we don't make money off of them anymore. So again, going to the main question, what would it take to actually disturb this planet in a way?
Okay, first of all, I only learned this recently. Do you know that on the Nixon tapes, because during the Nixon presidency, they passed the HMO law that allowed for-profit HMOs to he's on the tapes discussing with one of his henchmen that like this is going to allow Kaiser or whoever to make more money by keeping people sicker. Like they're joking about it, and they're like, "That's pretty funny. That's going to be great for them. They're going to make so much money." Like this is not like some secret that like, how was it done? Like people who did this knew what they were doing. They did it on purpose. But I know it can feel incredibly daunting. First thing is, we don't have to wait for the whole system to be fixed to fix what we control. This is the biggest thing, big takeaway from the book. Like, there's nothing in this book that's like, after the revolution, then you'll be able to do whatever. No. Every technique in the book works in the economy we have today. Every example is of a company that currently exists and is doing well today. And all the research has been done on companies that have already forged this path. So it's possible for individual companies to, even in the case of being embedded in a really hostile system, nonetheless thrive. Because like I said, we have the leverage to do that. If you can imagine multiple companies doing that, and banding together. The book is a lot about this force I call financial gravity, the gravity that drags companies down into mediocrity or worse. It is a values transmission mechanism that financial systems exhibit, just a property of a financial system. One of the most important ideas in the book is that which values are transmitted by a financial system are up for grabs. The fact that we are embedded in one that preaches this incredibly extractive idea of how to make money, that's not necessary. That's not a law of nature. We could have a different system if we want. So those of us who, like the beautiful thing about building new companies is that unlike a spaceship, companies are like a little bit like a submarine or a spaceship, like a tightly sealed, hermetically sealed bubble of utopia as you see it. And we got to make the hull strong enough that like the immense pressure outside does not collapse the hull and destroy you. But unlike a spaceship, these are living, vital organisms and they have a tendency to grow. They become celestial bodies unto themselves and start to exert their own gravity. And in the later chapters of the book, I walk through the mechanics of how that so-called mission transmission occurs. I can give examples if people are interested in that part. The reason why I'm optimistic about this is everyone here knows that the economy that our grandparents inhabited was unrecognizably different than the one we inhabit, right? Everyone agrees to that statement? So logically speaking, it is possible that the economy that our grandchildren inhabit will be unrecognizably different to the one we inhabit, right? Well, who gets to decide? I think we actually have the choice. We get to decide this. Now, if you read the book and you say, it sounds too hard, I don't know, I'm too scared, like, okay. You don't have to be part of the one who made it happen. But when your grandkids ask you, Grandpa, what were you, back when all that bad stuff was happening, what were you doing? I don't know. I feel like I'm going to be able to answer that question. I'd like you to be able to too.
Super clear for the audience. Never in the book is Eric saying make less money. What he's saying is you will make more money if you don't just maximize short-term profit, if you also take into account all of your shareholders, not just the preferred.
That's what the evidence shows.
If you take care of your customers, if you take care of your partners, you will create more value. Most importantly, what we see is because we see companies just trying to generate cash, so they're not investing in their own innovation whatsoever. Maybe now they do M&A, like that they're not investing in their own innovation, not creating future value inside the house either. And so it's very much a book about how to generate the most wealth in the world. It's not against that. I want to be very clear.
No, thank you for giving that, because I know we live in polarizing times, and we live in a time when people are actually turning against the very idea of making a for-profit company as in any way a virtuous or positive thing to do. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
I don't blame them. Look around. Look what our for-profit companies are doing. But I think that reflects a misunderstanding of what it means to make a profit in the first place. And in the book, I lay out a whole economic argument for why the correct definition of profit is simply to maximize human flourishing. That's what we're trying to do. So most of our distinctions we make between for-profit, non-profit, public sector, those distinctions don't make any sense at all if you understand profit properly. And when you learn to see profit in this different way, I promise you, you will start to see new business opportunities that you've currently been trained to ignore. And that's really, I think, the most exciting thing to me. The book has been out only a short time, but I'm already starting to get reader emails and comments and stuff. People saying, I read this book and now I'm starting a new company, because I realized there was this incredible opportunity just staring me in the face that I never would have considered even attempting, now that I see the world a different way because I had this tool.
What's your reaction going to be in the venture community if you don't have the next Anthropic, and instead you're just one of the other?
I hate to be the one to tell you this. Apparently, I have to be the one to give you the bad news. If you make a histogram of all of the venture deals that are done every year, what percentage of those deals are in a not hot company? Is it 1%? Is it 3%? It's an incredibly small percent. If you do it by dollar volume, it's even smaller, okay? Like the fact that there are still early stage companies that make contrarian investments, thank God, still exist, thank you. But like, that's pretty rare. Most venture deals are going to be in a hot company, which means this is only going to become a problem or even a conversation after you've become a hot company. The problem is we teach founders that whatever leverage they have in a negotiation should only be used to maximize valuation. And listen, VCs, everyone loves that because everyone gets paid by a percentage of valuation. And the fact that you can easily get your valuation too high to get yourself into massive trouble, they don't care. That's not their problem. That's your problem. So one of the ideas in the book is just use whatever leverage you have to advocate for your mission rather than maximum valuation. Second, There's actually like a game theory to this. Okay. So I want you to imagine there are only really like 3 scenarios you can ever be in when fundraising. Either nobody wants to invest in your company. That's the default state that most of us live in most of the time. Yeah. In that case, you can have whatever governance you want. Nobody cares. So you ask, what are VCs? What's going to happen with VCs? Nothing, because they don't care. Great. There's a situation where everyone and their mother wants to invest in your company. If you've never been through this, it's kind of weird. All of a sudden, all these same VCs who thought you were a moron now think you're like the most gorgeous person they've ever seen in their life. And whatever your vision is, they are ready to back it 100%. They're so founder friendly, you wouldn't believe it. In that case, if you've done this stuff in advance, it doesn't work if you do it in the turn. If you've done it in advance, you get an extra free piece of information about every investor you meet. They say, I love your vision. You are the one for me. But I also do need the ability to fire you anytime at will. You're like, oh, can I just write that down? In the spreadsheet where I keep track of your offer, I'm just going to write down asterisk also wants to fire me. And if some other VC says, actually, no, I really believe in this. I love that you have these protections. Then so you agree that in scenario 1, it made no difference. And in scenario 2, it's actually positive that you did it in advance. Agreed? Let's take situation 3. Situation 3 is extremely rare, but it does happen. It's the situation where one and only one investor wants to invest in your company. Okay. In that case, you will have to do what the investor wants if you want the money. But once again, there's still 3 cases. Case number 1 is the investor actually loves it. They're like, oh, I'm a mission-driven investor. That's why I'm investing in your company. This is great. Love it. Great. Boop. There's option 2 where a person just doesn't care. The vast majority of investors actually do not care. They do not have independent opinions about this. They vaguely heard that this is bad or something or whatever. But if you're just like, they don't care, they don't care. You agree that you're better off in that. So of the 9 cases, however it's been so far, the only one we have to worry about is you ever get yourself in a situation where you have no leverage, only one investor, and that investor hates this stuff. At that point, you will have to throw it out. But even then, you're better off having done it in advance. Here's why. I once had a founder, an incredibly hot founder, every Silicon Valley, Sand Hill Road firm was like begging to invest in this company. And he called me. He's like, I have all this leverage. What should I use it for? And I'm like, I got some stuff for you. He's like, great, give me the works. So he added 10 things to his term sheet of like all this stuff he wanted to do. Anyway, he picks an investor and tells them yes, and he made a big mistake. He tells every other investor no, and he was kind of a jerk about it. So he's basically like, yes to you, F you to all you other losers who aren't going to invest in my company. And as soon as he did that, of course, the timing, you know what's about to happen. His co-founder has like a mental breakdown and decides that they're about to raise too much money and he can't handle the stress and quits. And all of a sudden, this was the hottest deal on Sand Hill Road. Now, all of a sudden, he's got no leverage. And the same exact, like, it was like 1 day later, the same investors are like, we love you. You are the genius. They're like, yeah, now we're going to change the terms. And they just start squeezing him for everything they could possibly get away with. And what could he do? He'd already said F you to everybody else, right? So in the end, the investor made him take 8 of the 10 things out of the term sheet. And he called me totally dejected. He's like, what was the point of doing all that stuff if they're just going to make me take it out? I'm like, buddy, you're upset because you see -8 things. But I see +2 things that you wouldn't have gotten if you hadn't done it in advance. So see how in every single one of these cases, you're better off having done it in advance than waiting until later.
Yeah, you're in front, please.
For the past 10 years, I've known I wanted to do a public benefit corporation in Delaware. But I want to thank you for writing a book to give us the recipe for adding the 3 belts and the 4 pairs of suspenders.
Exactly.
If later on in negotiations, they take away 2 pairs of suspenders, we still last.
Jack here has been kicked out of the airlock a couple of times, but he's very appreciative of Eric writing the book, and he describes the metaphor of even if you lose 2 pairs of suspenders, you got the 3rd one.
Yeah, those of us come from an engineering background should understand this intuitively. Now, for those of you who are sitting there being like, yeah, this is just not going to happen to me, I want you to talk to Jack about it, okay? And you can, when you commiserate, you can talk about this research that was done at Harvard Law School. Just so you know, among venture-backed companies with standard governance, only 20% of founders will still be CEO even 3 years after an IPO. So you're probably the exception, but maybe your friend's company is going to be in the 80%. So maybe for your friend's sake, you could ask Jack what it's like.
Good. Everyone, we're at time. You can convene afterwards, but let's take a second to give Eric Ries a round of applause for really sharing his point of view here. That's great.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, and you're welcome to hang out here and welcome to SOSV. All right. Thank you guys very much.
Thanks,
you for
everybody.
coming.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
SOSV Deep Tech Live.